I think the first thing that springs to mind when we're thinking about queer theory or representation of sexuality and gender in the show would perhaps be the relationships between Renly and Loris Tyrell, and Loris and Oliver later after Renly has died, and the fact that these relationships are taking place, it's interesting that the show sort of presents them as tolerated, but not widely talked about.
Yeah.
They're sort of accepted, but also frowned upon.
Yeah, there's a kind of a closeted quality to it.
Yeah,
in some ways.
I'm fairly certain that they are referred to by various characters behind the backs of Renly and Loris and so on, as kind of like a perversion or an unnatural relationship, which obviously creates some problematic questions about representation. Because obviously on the one hand, it's very positive that there are LGBTQ plus relationships being portrayed within the show, but on the other hand, they are very much being presented in a heterosexist way, whereby this LGBTQ relationship is very other. It's very outside what is understood as normative. And we can also draw into that, I think, the bisexuality of Ilaria Sand and Oberyn Martell.
Yes, indeed.
Which again, it's very positive that we've got a representation of bisexuality in the show, but on the other hand, it is very much presented as an exoticized. Because we see it through the lens of the people living in the urban big city.
Indeed.
It's very much presented as something that is it's acceptable in Dawn, but it's terribly exotic.
And there's a kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, there's a kind of an othering that's taking place with regards to Dawnish culture overall. And the kind of the more permissive kind of attitudes towards bisexuality that we find in Dawn are kind of embedded into that exoticized, othered kind of perspective there. Yeah, certainly. One of the things that seems to me interesting, I mean, again, this is sort of tangentially, I guess, related to what we're talking about, but it's also quite interesting to kind of think about the kind of different ways in which characters who have been kind of castrated are presented in the show, because we have Varys, the kind of master spy and of shifting allegiances, let's say. We have Theon, who changes entirely as a character once Ramsay Bolton castrates him.
Becomes completely submissive.
So there's a kind of a way in which with the kind of the loss of the phallus in these instances is frequently related with, again, quite problematic ideas around sort of effeminization and the kind of loss of quote-unquote masculinity as it's kind of understood in that, as you said, heterosexist kind of perspective that seems to inform the society in which
Theon
the story takes
completely
place.
loses his not just his power, but also his identity.
Yes, indeed.
He completely loses his sense of who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a kind of a way in which the loss of phallus then amounts to kind of an entire erasure of the self, which raises all kinds of questions. But then as a kind of not necessarily a reverse of that, but a kind of a thing that complicates this, we have the army of the Unsullied, all of whom are castrated, but not nearly kind of as effeminized as...
quite the opposite.
As these previous
very masculinized. These are like warriors who can't be defeated. If anything, they're kind of presented as the epitome of masculinity.
Which then I guess kind of subverts those other expectations that are kind of presented through Varys and particularly through Theon. So there's again this kind of moment of, as you said before, that the books are dealing with complexity and doesn't kind of settle into an easy reading in that way. And I think there with those three kind of examples we see that happening again.